Welcome, everyone. My name is Crystal Sexton, and I am the head of Children's Services at the Farmington Hills location of the Farmington Community Library. We are so glad you are here to join us for the next session of our Parent Workshop on Zoom series. Tonight's topic is helping your child stay safe online. And I'm very excited to have our experts presenting on this important topic tonight, and I will let them introduce themselves in a minute. But just some kind of housekeeping information before we get started. This is being recorded for our YouTube channel, the library's YouTube channel, so the recording will be made available online in a couple of days. The slides that you will see tonight, the presentation, you will get those emailed to you along with some links that our experts are providing. And I'll probably send that email out to you on Saturday. If you have any questions at any point, you can just drop them in the chat below, and I will either interrupt our experts or wait and ask them during the Q&A session. When they finish their presentation, I will stop the recording, and the Q&A aspect of tonight's session will not be recorded. So you can feel free to ask your questions at any time, and that will not show up in the recording. We do ask that you stay on mute until the Q&A portion starts, and then you can come off mute if you want to ask a question rather than drop it in the chat. But during the presentation, please stay muted just so that everyone can hear. And speaking of what is being said, please don't forget that below you can see where it says show captions. You can click that and then captions will appear on the screen for you if you need some extra assistance with hearing what or reading what is being said and shared tonight so that you have access to every piece of information we're providing. I think that's it for all of our kind of my housekeeping and anything. But if you have any tech trouble, questions, anything like that, please feel free to just drop it in the chat and I will either help you over chat or we'll touch base with the slides. If you have questions about what you see on the screen or questions for Erica or Chelsea, we can always pause. But then, yes, we will have a full Q&A after the presentation, which is about an hour. So I think we're ready to dive in, and I'm going to turn it over to Erica and Chelsea.
Awesome. Let me share my screen here. Let's see. Alrighty. Chelsea, is that all looking good there? Awesome. Well, thank you, Christelle, for inviting us to talk with you guys this evening. And thank you, everyone, for taking time out of your busy schedules to listen to us today and have a conversation with us. Today, we're going to talk about technology, social media, and youth mental health, and how you, as a parent, can help keep your child safe online. And just as some quick introductions, I'm Erica Williams. I'm a research specialist at the University of Michigan and the American Academy of Pediatrics Center of Excellence on Social Media and Youth Mental Health. And with me today is my colleague, Chelsea. I'll let her come off of mute and introduce herself.
Thanks, Erica. Hi, everyone. My name is Chelsea Olson, and I'm a scientist in the Department of Pediatrics at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And I work on a team called SMART, the Social Media and Adolescent Health Research Team with Dr. Megan Moreno. Turn it back to you, Erica.
So thanks, Chelsea. And Chelsea and I are both part of the research team at this AAP Center of Excellence. We're really excited to talk with you all today. And before we begin, I do want to give you a bit of a background into what the Center of Excellence is, what we do, who we are, just in case you haven't heard of us. And so back in 2022, the Center of Excellence on Social Media was established through HHS and SAMHSA to serve as a centralized, trusted source of evidence and support for parents like you, teens themselves, pediatricians, teachers, and other professionals who work with youth to help them navigate social media. And our centers run through the American Academy of Pediatrics, and we have two medical directors, Dr. Megan Moreno, who is at the University of Wisconsin with Chelsea, and Dr. Jenny Radeski, who's at the University of Michigan with myself. At the Center of Excellence, we have 5 key points to our approach to social media and mental health, and this might look a little bit different than what you're used to hearing about social media and youth mental health. And so I wanted to go over these 5 points that we use in all guidance we give out or any resources we provide to families or other professionals. And so the first key point is that we center on the child and the adolescent. So this is where we make sure to keep the child at the center of the conversation and help them have a say in what happens and ask them how they feel about their own technology use or their own social media use. Second is the developmental lens. This is where we create resources that match the way kids grow and develop. And at the center, it's great that we are able to cover infancy technology use all the way up to older adolescents, those like young adults. And the next one is the importance of context. This is where we support families by meeting them where they are and understanding their situations. We address topics like parent tech use, parent-child relationship challenges, and we also help and encourage and provide other community opportunities. The next point is individual differences. This is where we adjust our work to fit the unique strengths and needs of each child and their family. We know that when it comes to social media and youth mental health, it's not a one size fits all approach. And so we try to adjust what we do to fit those unique strengths and needs of each person and the family members. And lastly is the digital ecosystem design. This is where we speak up for changes in rules and laws to help keep kids safe online. So the first portion of this presentation today is I really want to address why technology and social media can sometimes feel overwhelming to manage in our families and within our homes. And for a lot of families, we've heard that managing technology can feel out of control or it feels overwhelming, or sometimes it can even feel like it's a judgmental topic or it's hard to talk about even with friends or even family members. And so at the center, we want to normalize the fact that lots of families feel this way. They feel like tech is out of control or overwhelming, and raising small humans is hard. Parenting can be difficult. So we want to help lower like the blame and the shame that parents feel by discussing why tech can feel this way, because it's not your fault. Technology is designed and created in ways to make it feel like that. And if you're overwhelmed by this topic, it is normal and you are not alone. So we're going to go briefly and just break down some of the reasons why managing technology can feel so hard. So the first thing that we're seeing is this popular narrative, and it's being portrayed through media outlets and news outlets, and it showcases social media in a really fearful way. So you'll see in these images that social media or smartphones are being portrayed as, destroying a generation, they're toxic, or they're destroying the world. And what we've seen at the Center of Excellence is that these dramatic, scary, or fearful messages don't reflect the science that's out there, and that this type of messaging can actually create a feeling of hopelessness, shame or blame, or an inability to make a change in one's life, especially in parents. So at the center, we want to change the way we talk about this because we've seen how this narrative can make people feel this way, and instead want to focus on giving you practical, real life solutions that you can use and take into your family. And we'll go through some of those today. And so, one reason why technology can feel overwhelming is because of how fast the digital world moves today. So, if you look at the left side of the screen, you'll see that the radio took 38 years to reach 50 million global users, and the TV took 14 years to reach 50 million global users. This shows that families had time to adjust and figure out how technology works in their family and within their home. Families had time to figure out, okay, when do we listen to the radio? How do we listen to the radio? When does it fit within the time of our day? Or, when can they watch TV? Whereas nowadays, if you go to the bottom of the left side of the screen, you'll see the iPad took 80 days to reach 50 million global users. And Pokemon Go, the app, took just 19 days, under a month, to reach 50 million global users. And this is part of the business model for tech companies, this like move fast, break things model, where they want to get things up to scale and get so big that they can make money. But what this can do is this can cause a sense of whiplash or this feeling of overwhelming feeling when it comes to trying to manage tech in the home and within your family. Another reason why a lot of parents, this can feel overwhelming, is a lot of parents didn't grow up with the devices or the platforms that kids have today. So you might see some of the images here on the right side of the screen and note that you grew up with those. Or maybe some you didn't. And so, for example, I grew up with a Nintendo DS, where now kids have the Nintendo Switch, Or another example is I grew up with Instagram, but I did not grow up with ChatGPT. So it's going to be hard for me to know how to parent around that Nintendo Switch or ChatGPT because I did not grow up with them. I don't know how they work and what the function is of them. This is just another example to show you how quickly consumption has accelerated. And so the top of the graph is these devices or technological advancements getting into 100% of US households. So if you look on the left side, you can see the telephone, cars, electricity, even the stove is up there. Like those slowly got up to 100% of US households, and families had time to adjust and figure out how those things fit into their home and within their family context. Whereas if you look at the right side of the screen, you can look at the VCR, computer, cell phone, or internet. Those things much more quickly got up to 90 and 100% of US households. So it just goes to show how fast this industry is moving nowadays. Another reason why it can feel hard to keep up with technology and social media is that social media platforms look different from what we may have originally thought social media was. So social media started as Friendster, Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, and now we have platforms where photos and text disappear after 10 seconds, or we have short form videos on platforms with endless frictionless scrolls. It's not posting your Starbucks cup on Instagram anymore. So these platforms have changed dramatically, and the designs of these platforms have changed dramatically. And, it can be hard to figure out if we didn't grow up with them, how we can manage them as well. Another aspect is content. Content is being harder to manage and monitor as well. And so this point here is 500 hours of video content was uploaded to YouTube every minute worldwide. 500 hours of content every minute worldwide. This was back in 2019, so this is a little bit dated. But you think now there's influencers, there's content creators, there's so much more content that's out there on social media, so it has become harder to monitor. And what we want to do at the center is really provide you with tools and give you empowering you to make small changes that fit your family values and your situation. So today we want you to leave this session like you have some ideas to be more balanced with technology and be less critical of yourselves, really taking that shame and the blame out of this conversation. Maybe we can be more critical of the tech companies that want your time and attention, but let's not be critical of yourselves. And if we can normalize this conversation, we can help reduce that feeling of shame or blame. And I will pass it to Chelsea now, who will break down the benefits and the risks of being online.
Thanks, Erica. All right, so as Erica mentioned, this next section will be about social media and phone use. And so I first want to point out on the next slide that there are benefits and risks of using social media. So on this slide and the next slide, I'll talk about the benefits of social media for teens or adolescents in particular, including social connection and social support, learning new information or discovering online communities that are safe, being able to explore interests and passions, learning about oneself or identity formation, and self-expression, civic engagement, and social activism. And then lastly, functional tasks or being able to complete everyday tasks via technology. So moving on to the next slide, I'm going to dive more in depth into each of these benefits. So social media allows for opportunities of social connection and social support. So it allows for youth to connect with others both near and far, so across geographical barriers. And around 74% of teens aged 13 to 17 have reported that using social media makes them feel more connected to their friends. And peer relationships, such as friendships, are really important in adolescence as peers become an influential source of advice, support, and well-being. Youth can also use social media to seek out and receive social support. They might ask friends or family for advice or help via social media, or they may access support groups via Facebook or anonymous groups like on the platform Reddit. And accessing and receiving social support has many positive impacts to well-being, such as decreases in mental health issues like depression and anxiety and or loneliness. So I also wanted to mention that social connection and social support found on social media can be particularly beneficial for specific groups of adolescents as well. So for example, LGBTQIA+ adolescents face stigma, discrimination, and safety issues, and finding connection and support online can be particularly beneficial for them. And for one more example, youth with chronic illnesses or complex conditions, particularly those that are rare, can find connection and support on social media as well. And parents of youth with chronic illnesses have also reported finding support through social media groups. So teens can also use social media to learn new things online, as well as find safe online communities. So some examples include learning health information. So coming back to that specific group of adolescents, youth with chronic illnesses or complex conditions might particularly benefit from resources that they find online that they can't access offline, or that they have a difficult time finding offline. Learning information for school, learning about the news, as most, if not all, news media accounts now have social media platforms on many platforms, is another way that they might learn information. And then teens may also be able to find communities that are safe. So coming back to LGBTQIA+ adolescents, they may be able to find safe communities that can help them navigate challenges that they're facing, such as discrimination or bullying. It can help them feel a sense of belonging. And then another key component of adolescent development is identity development. So this is one of the major tasks that happens in adolescence as youth gain independence. They differentiate themselves from their parents or caregivers, and they learn more about themselves and who they want to be. And social media can help youth learn about themselves. They can showcase parts of their identity, they can explore their passions, their interests, their hobbies. And teens can also use social media for self-expression, meaning they can express themselves through posts or photos or videos, or share those interests or hobbies online, like sharing information about their sports activities, their band, their art, their debate, and so on. Youth can also use social media to be civically engaged in society or participate in social activism. Teens could raise money, advocate for causes that are important to them, learn about politics or other civic duties. So for one example, after the tragic school shooting in Parkland, Florida in 2018, the students in that high school mobilized and fought for stricter gun laws, and they used social media to spread messages about that and educate around that. Activism around climate change is also one we might see teens engaging in. So we can think of Greta Thunberg from Sweden, who started her activism online at age 15 in 2018. And then the last benefit I will highlight is the functional tasks that can be completed or facilitated with social media. So one example is that teens can plan events on social media. I've also heard from teens that they like to connect with classmates for school assignments via their social media profiles because they can share those handles and profiles rather than sharing their personal phone numbers. And that helps them feel a little bit more protected with their information. So that is all of the benefits that I'll share here. And moving on to the next slide, we'll highlight some of the risks of social media, and again, for teens in particular who are on social media. So these include cyberbullying, poor body image or body dissatisfaction, social comparison, harmful content exposure, unwanted contact from others, impaired sleep, and the potential for problematic uses of media. And then again, on the next slide, I will dive into each of these a little bit more in depth. So first with cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is bullying that happens online. It's the intentional and repeated use of digital technologies to harass others. It can take place on a variety of different digital platforms, including social media, but can also happen in online games and through text messages. And about almost half of adolescents have reported they've experienced at least some form of online harassment. And being a victim of cyberbullying is associated with negative impacts to physical and mental health. So some physical health impacts include somatic complaints like headaches or stomach aches. And being a victim has also been linked to depression and anxiety, among other negative outcomes. Youth may also encounter content on social media that leads to social comparison, poor body image, or feelings of dissatisfaction towards their bodies. So social comparison happens when one's self-worth is determined by comparing oneself to others. So if a teen does compare themselves to another person and they don't feel good enough or they feel poorly about themselves, that may negatively impact their self-worth or well-being. Social media content or profiles that promote unrealistic expectations about bodies, such as maintaining a certain body type, like being very skinny or very muscular, or profiles that are focused on disordered eating, like maintaining a specific diet that's not realistic or healthy, that can have an impact on body image as well for teens, and on the extreme side, disordered eating habits. So again, youth may be exposed to harmful content on social media. Social media platforms do make attempts to remove harmful content, but despite those efforts, youth may be exposed to content like violence, substance use, or content related to eating disorders. So part of this is that sometimes people can get around content filters. So sometimes certain words will trigger a platform to remove a post, but people can adjust the word in some way, like replace letters with numbers or bleep out words, and then it gets around the filter so that that has been a challenge with harmful content to monitor that. And then while it is overall rare, teens do report that they have experienced unwanted contact from people that they don't know. So from strangers or marketers, people who might be trolling, and then on the less frequent side, folks that are looking to groom them. If social media use impairs sleep, such as if teens are using social media too late into the night, or if they have their phones by their beds and they're interrupted by notifications, they may experience some negative outcomes, such as being tired the next day. And being tired at school can impact school performance negatively. And I want to point out that sleep is really important in adolescence. Teens need about 8 to 9 hours of sleep. And many teens don't get enough sleep during the night. And one reason is due to the physical and brain changes during puberty. Teens don't need to go to bed as early as children, but they often still need to wake up as early as children in order to go to school. So to balance that, sometimes they don't end up getting enough sleep. And if social media is impeding on that as well, that can be another issue. And then the last risk that I'll discuss is problematic media, internet, or social media use. So we define this type of use as use that is risky or excessive and leads specifically to negative consequences such as physical, emotional, social, or functional impairments. So some of these impairments include sleep issues, mental health issues, academic difficulties, and negative impacts to social relationships. So there is a risk that using media in these ways will contribute to teens developing problematic media use and have those experiences and impacts to their life. All right, then on the next slides, I'll go through recommendations for getting a phone and social media. So what is the best age to get a phone? Currently, the research does not point to a perfect age at which kids are ready for a phone or a smartphone. Teens themselves have said they agree that there's no one single universal perfect age to get a phone. Teens have reported that they think smartphone readiness should be determined by their own levels of responsibility, as well as whether their parents are ready to help them create rules and boundaries and help them navigate their relationship with their phone. However, in one survey, teens and young adults recommended that children receive their first phone around the age of 12 or 13 and when it becomes a necessity for independence from parents. So, for example, some youth around this age or earlier may need a phone to connect with their parents during school, maybe due to medical conditions, or after school due to extracurricular activities. So safety might be a reason to get a phone. And then I want to emphasize that if your child gets a phone, that doesn't mean that they need to have access to social media. So receiving a phone could start with just being able to text message parents or friends, play certain games, or listen to music, or use a search engine, or learn something for school. So there can be limits when receiving a first phone. And then on the next slide, we talk a little bit more about readiness. So before you give a phone to your child, consider talking to your child about your family's rules, boundaries, and expectations around using the phone. This could include setting expectations around times of use. So it's generally recommended that youth try not to have their phones in their bedroom and while sleeping. So their bed should be used for sleep unless it's absolutely necessary. Try and limit the use of phones in the bedroom at bedtime and overnight. At meal times as well, particularly dinner times, these are great ways for families to connect, and so phones and technology should be limited during that time. And then youth should also try and limit phone use during homework time unless absolutely necessary. Then you can remind your child that getting a cell phone doesn't mean getting social media, and depending on your rules and boundaries, having access and not having access to all that a smartphone has to offer. So in addition, settings are important like privacy, content, contact, download, and downtime settings. So you can use parent controls. Another option is to start a phone with only the boring settings. So maybe they can't play games at first, but they can start with texting instead of social media. For younger children, having some level of access to the phone can be helpful, but as children get older and enter adolescence, privacy and trust are really important. So managing that balance is important as well. And you should check in with your child on certain activities they are doing on the phone. And you might also consider a starter device. There are a few listed here like Gab, Pinwheel, or a smartwatch. And then communicate openly, honestly, and often. Talk about how it's going every few weeks. And as children grow, provide them with more freedom when they start to show more responsibility and readiness. And we will share this link as well, but the AAP has a phone ready quiz that may be helpful in determining your child's readiness. All right, we can move to the next slide. So based on what we know from research into the risks and benefits of early social media use and platform policies, we do suggest waiting until children are at least age 18 before starting social media accounts like Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok. This is because of those risks of unwanted contact from strangers, more compulsive use when children are younger, and more risks for body dissatisfaction, especially for girls, and higher rates of depression if starting much earlier than 13. But even after age 13, it really depends on a child's own individual unique traits and characteristics. Every child is different. So one 13-year-old may be ready for a social media account, but another 16-year-old may not be. And then on the next slide, we outline some things that you can do as parents. And again, the progression for social media can be similar to how you approach getting a phone as well, where your child starts small and moves toward more independence later. So you could start with one platform and monitor how it's going. When setting up an account, be sure to be honest about age, so no under 13 accounts. Keep the accounts private and consider using parental controls to monitor friends and accounts that are followed. You can encourage your child to follow inspirational or positive accounts. Teach them how to pause before posting. So when your child wants to post something, encourage them to be careful and pause and think about the post first. Utilize all of the settings to limit risks, such as blocking, reporting, downvoting, and content filters. Youth may need help identifying and using these settings at first. And then talk about use regularly. Ensure that your child knows you're a safe space and they can come to you if they see any upsetting content or if they see bullying behaviors. And be sure that your child is not communicating with any strangers as well. And lastly, be your child's biggest influencer. Be there for them and encourage them, teach them, and support them. All right, moving on. The next two slides are some additional recommendations for how to address social media use and talking about social media use with your child based on their age and developmental stage. So for younger children, keeping it simple with age-appropriate language, like not everything on the internet is true, and teaching the basics about why not sharing their name and where they live is really important. And then for tweens, so around that age 10 to 12, having open conversations. So asking questions like, have you ever seen anything online that makes you uncomfortable? Talking about privacy as well as online etiquette. So encouraging them to treat people with respect, both offline and extending that online. And then for teens 13 plus, focusing on trust, make sure they're comfortable talking about their experiences without fear of punishment. Encourage them to take breaks and prioritize their in-person connections to benefit their mental health and empower their independence. So teach them how to gain those skills that they themselves can use to find truth and be safe. And then the next slide has conversation starters, again, by age and developmental stage. So for young children, things like, what do you think people use the internet for? If someone said something mean online, what do you think you should do? For tweens, some examples are, have you noticed times when it's harder to get off video games? What would you do if someone you didn't know tried to message you? And then for teens 13 plus, asking questions like, if you left your phone at home by accident, how do you think you would feel and why? Or have you ever felt uncomfortable about something you saw or shared online? So these are just some examples of conversation starters that you can use to chat with your child about their media use. And then the next slide goes into a little bit of details about what to do if your child is feeling sad, stressed, or in danger. So talking to your child is really important, leading the conversation with curiosity rather than fear, ensuring that your child feels safe and supported, and be sure to talk and educate about topics related to online safety. If your child has come across troubling content and they ask you or talk to you about it, try to avoid blaming them. Remember, we want to approach these conversations with curiosity rather than fear, blame, or shame, so that the child feels supported and cared for and will be willing to come to you in the future with problems. And lean into teaching them about why the content is problematic. For example, you could teach your child about how content that promotes disordered eating is problematic because it can encourage patterns of eating that are not healthy and impact physical health. And focus on strategies to decrease access to that content, blocking, reporting, reworking or resetting algorithms, and so on. And then setting safety measures. So for younger children, parental controls can be really helpful. And then teaching tweens and teens how to use various privacy controls and settings. Always be attentive to mood or behavior changes. Changes that are out of the ordinary for your child signal a need to probe deeper. And if needed, consider professional support from your child's pediatrician or a counselor if you're really feeling like they need some extra help. All right, on the next slide. So let's say that you have a conversation, but it doesn't go well. That's okay, but now what? Remember, it's okay not to win an argument right in the moment. Take a deep breath. Remember that you have more experience feeling these big things. And if you're frustrated, they probably are too. One option is to take a 15 to 30-minute break to cool down and then come back together and try again. Start over and remind them that no problem is too big or too small to bring to you. And just continue to try and be their safe space. Children are more likely to open up if they feel safe and supported. So listen without judgment and reassure them that you're there to help them and not punish them. All right, I think now I will turn it back over to Erica.
Awesome. Thank you, Chelsea. So for our next portion of the presentation, we are going to talk about some safety and control settings. And one thing that the Center of Excellence has created is this glossary of digital media platforms. So one thing we heard early on from parents is that they wanted this catch-all, one-stop shops place to go to find all the settings and tools that are available to not only themselves, but for their children to help keep their kids safe online. And so we heard that, and we created the glossary of digital media platforms, where we've included popular social media and digital media platforms and included all sorts of different settings and tools that are available on these specific platforms. So these are just some of the platforms that we have on the glossary today. And this is just a brief overview of some of the settings that we have available. So we comb through each platform's help or support websites or the apps themselves and find out what sort of default settings they have for teens and what sort of other safety and privacy settings they have. And so we have content filters where teens and parents can control what content's coming up on their algorithms or privacy settings. We have parental controls listed, notification settings. There's so many other settings and tools that are listed on our glossary that you can go see. I won't go into all of the platforms today, but I'm going to go into some popular ones that we've heard. And so the first platform I want to chat about is YouTube. I do want to note that there is YouTube Kids if you have younger children, and if your younger kids want to be on YouTube, would highly recommend YouTube Kids. There's other similar platforms to YouTube Kids as well, but YouTube Kids is just geared for the younger age groups, and it's a more controlled experience for young children. Another thing with YouTube is you can use YouTube not signed in, not assigned up to an account. You don't have to, put in your email. You can freely search YouTube. And so I would highly recommend signing up both as the parent and the child. That way you guys can link your accounts and each have a better experience on there. Because the next point is these supervised accounts, where if the parent has an account and the child has the account, you can create a supervised account for children. And this is for the older tweens and teens who want to be on YouTube, but they need a little bit more settings and tools to limit exposure to inappropriate content or keep themselves private on the platform. And so when you create a supervised account for kids on YouTube, you get to choose what type of content they're being exposed to. And there's 3 options. There's Explore, Explore More, and Most of YouTube. This Explore is the most restrictive of the 3 options. And then the Explore More is in the middle. And Most of YouTube is just what it sounds like. They're going to be able to see most of YouTube aside from the age restricted or restricted content. Also, when a child is set up in a supervised account, personal ads are prohibited, so they won't get any of those. Autoplay is off by default, and so that like frictionless move to the next video is turned off, and the children can then think about, okay, I've finished this video, what am I going to do next, instead of the YouTube itself just going to the next video for them. And also automatic reminders for breaks and bedtime are included in the supervised experience. If you don't set up a supervised account, there are also other settings that are available. And all of these screenshots that you'll see today are from my own social media, from my phone or my computer. So they should be up to date, if not a little bit different. And so on YouTube, you can clear, like refresh or remove your search and watch history. If you're just not liking what's kind of being recommended or what's on your YouTube, you can clear it or pause it. You can also curate your homepage. And so you can remove videos, specific channels, sections, or playlists from your recommended content on that, landing homepage that you come to on YouTube. And this is a screenshot of it. But if you look at these little dots right here, if you click that, this menu pops up, and this is where you can choose not interested, don't recommend, or even report it if it is inappropriate content. And if your child's on YouTube, just make sure like age restriction or restricted mode is on if they're on there. The next platform is Instagram. And so I believe it was last year, Instagram did create teen accounts. And I want to note that Chelsea mentioned it briefly too. It is so important that if your child is signing up for social media, that they put their correct age in and don't pretend that they're, 25, 26 years old, because there are default settings that are built in for when they have their accurate age in there. And so if, for Instagram, it's between the 13 and 16 that they have these default settings where they'll see less sensitive content. They'll automatically be put into a private account, and they won't be able to make it public without a parent's permission. They have messaging restrictions. They are only able to be tagged or mentioned by people they follow. There's some time limit reminders, a sleep mode, and parent supervision is able to do in the Instagram teen account. And so these pictures on the screen here, the top one is just showing with the teen accounts, they can choose what type of content they want to see. So if they're interested in arts and crafts, or if they're interested in basketball, baseball, whatever it may be, travel, they can choose those content categories that they're interested in to get more content with that topic. The bottom is what you'll see if your child were to be in a teen account and they were to ask to change their profile to public, they would get this notification that would say you can change the setting with the parent. And so it'd give you a notification as the parent that they'd requested to change that. If your child's not in a Instagram teen account, there are other options where you can go to a focused algorithm. These are algorithms where you're just seeing who you follow or the profiles that you have marked as your favorite. You can also mark any sponsored or recommended post as interested or not interested to either get more of that content or less of it. And you can also unfollow or hide accounts that you just aren't interested in seeing. The next platform I want to chat about is TikTok. And so if you long press on a video on TikTok, this top picture will come up, and I believe it's still this broken heart. It might look a little bit different today. But if you see that broken heart, you can mark the video as not interested, and the algorithm and your For You page will take that into account and show you less of that content. You can also block or mute users if you don't want to see that type of content. And with children's accounts and this bottom image here, you can see the restricted mode. You can turn this on, and this restricted mode will limit the appearance of content that may be inappropriate or be marked as mature. If you're not liking your For You page on TikTok, you can totally refresh your feed and reset the algorithm as if you were brand new to the platform. There are also default settings for users 13 to 17 on TikTok. Their accounts are private by default. Their account cannot be suggested to others. Their videos cannot be downloaded, and only friends can comment on their videos. There's also some screen time settings, and family pairing is available on TikTok. My next platform is Snapchat, and there are some default settings for youth on Snapchat. Their profiles are private, again, by default. They must be friends with another person to tag each other. Snapchat does have a Snap Map where the user's location is shared. And for youth, if they, again, put in their correct age, their location sharing is off by default, and content moderation settings are automatically turned on. And so this is what the Snap Map looks like. And so on the left side of this picture, this is where this person's location would be able to be seen by anyone who they're friends with. And on the right, you'll see the little ghost over the emoji there, and that means they're in ghost mode, or their location's not visible to be seen by others. There is a family center through Snapchat as well. Both parent and teen have to opt in to the family center. But once you opt in, parents can see who the teen's friends with, who they're messaging with, not the actual content of the message, but they can see who they're messaging with. Parents can confidentially report inappropriate accounts. And Snapchat has also put in an AI feature they call My AI. And with the Family Center, you can help manage the My AI. I also wanted to include some popular iPhone and Android, just basic phone settings that are available for us to really take advantage of on our own devices. I know I use these myself. And so focus modes are great. And so customizable focus modes, you'll see on the right side of the screen, what do you want to focus on? There's so many different choices. And one that I really love, especially for teens, is the driving one. Especially when you have a teen who's just learning to drive and get behind the wheel. Turning on this do not disturb or this focus mode will silence all calls and notifications. And one thing I love, and even some of my family does this, is if we have our driving focus mode on, it will send a text if I try to call my cousin, it will send me a text saying that she is driving and that she will respond to me when she gets to her destination. So just a fun way to customize it. You can change wallpapers with it. And so teens can have fun with it and just creating their own customizable ways to have some downtime. There's also, if you're in focus mode, you'll get notification summaries rather than like one notification at a time. There's also screen time settings that are available on the iPhone, so you can schedule downtime app limits. I know I do this with multiple of my own platforms. Screen distance is where the phone can tell how close the phone is to the person's face. And there's also some communication limits. And next, I wanted to address Android devices. They have unplugging, focus, and balance features. Some are similar to what the Apple iPhone has as well. But with Android, you have bedtime mode. You can see on the image there where, bedtime is from 11 to 7 on certain days or only while charging, because you can really customize it to who that child is. There's also a night light feature where it just dims the screen a little bit so it's not so bright during nighttime hours. Some focus features. I like this flip to mode or feature. This is where you just simply flip over the phone and it silences all notifications. So just a very easy way to just take control of when and how you're receiving notifications on your device. They also have general focus modes, just like I mentioned with the Apple iPhone. Some balance features are digital well-being and parental control dashboard. You'll see that on the right side of the screen here. And this is just a breakdown of, you can see what platforms your child is spending the most on, and whether it be messages, Chrome, YouTube. So you can see that breakdown of how much time they're spending on each type of platform. And there's also app timers to limit how much time you're spending on each app. And then next, I want to go into lots of resources that we have that Christelle shared and that we have at our Center of Excellence. And these are ways that you can work together as a family to help protect your child online. So the first one is this family screen time plan. And it's from the Brooklyn Library with Common Sense Media. So this is free to download and printable to where you can do this with your family, put your family name, the parents' names and the kids' names and ages, and really go through and check off the things that you want to apply to your family. Do you want to watch and play media together? Do you want to choose media that matches your child's interests and is age appropriate? Or do you want to make sure your child's asking you before they're using a new app or visiting a new website, or setting limits kind of around timers or screen time, bedtime, or a grown-up needs the device for something important. So you can set all these limits with your family and your child specifically. This is the other side of it, where you can set weekday screen times, weekend screen times, and even set up screen-free zones and screen-free times. And so this handout will be included in the resources that we send out to you after the presentation as well. The American Academy of Pediatrics also has a different version of a family media plan or family screen time plan. And this is where you can go in and add all sorts of different priorities like media balance, communicating about media, kindness and empathy, digital privacy and safety, screen-free zones, screen time, choosing good content, using media together. And you can also print this one out and change it as the children get older as well. And one resource that the Center of Excellence has is these conversation starters. And Chelsea briefly mentioned some earlier in the presentation, but we have created these. These are focused on tweens and teens. And so if you were to open these on the website, click this little down arrow, a bunch of questions would pop up. And if you're struggling to know where to start this conversation, we have plenty of conversation starters for you guys to kind of have a jumping point to start that conversation. And we also have a printable card version of these conversation starters, and I love these. They're so fun and colorful. And these are just social media tips and conversation starters for families. Again, focus on tweens and teens. It goes into, be the screen time you want to see, setting your phone up for success, and even includes some of the practical settings that I included on certain platforms. And these are free to download and print on our website. We also, if you have younger children, we have plenty of resources for the young kids too. These are for 10 and younger, again, free to download and print. And these are really more skills to help those young children build digital literacy when they're younger, and to think critically about how they're using technology and eventually how they'll be using social media. And so one fun game is like pop-up ad whack-a-mole. So if your young child is on app on their tablet and an ad comes up, they might not know what that is. And so you can just play a game, play with them, and just play like pop-up ad whack-a-mole and figure out what those ads are and teach your child to just exit out of that ad. Other topics are chat etiquette, family movie night, or thinking about whether posting or not to post. We also have an early childhood development and screen time toolkit that we came out with in October. But some of these resources in that toolkit can also be used for the older kids. So, like this resource here, like I mentioned, lots of families feel like technology can feel, overwhelming or out of control. And so, if you're feeling that way, we've included this three-step process to take an inventory of what technology is in your life and make a list of non-tech alternatives that you, your child, and your family like to do. And then make a plan, but also go easy on yourself. Know that it might not work the first time and you might have to edit it a little bit, but try something new and that's okay. And these activities are a little bit geared towards the early childhood. But it's just a good way to think of what activities does your child like to do, or what activities do you like to do with your child that, don't include a screen in them. We also have a Calm toolbox, and this toolbox works, it's more for teens, and this is to help calm their nervous system with different types of activities. So, help them breathe or slow their heart rate and provide a positive distraction, or providing physical outlets for releasing their energy. So it can be, reaching out to a family friend, moving their body, a physical refocus, or getting into arts and crafts, using a calming app even too, or a calm gaming app, or reading a book, listening to an audiobook, listening to a podcast. So this is a newer resource that we have on our center. And so definitely would love if you could check that out with your teen. And we have lots of book recommendations. And so these are just a few. I have read a few of these. And so these are just some good recommendations if you're interested in reading some more. First Phone by Catherine Perlman, Screenwise, Behind Their Screens, Emily Weinstein and Carrie James. I love that one. The Emotional Lives of Teenagers by Lisa D'Amour, and then Growing Up in Public, Coming Age in a Digital World. Those are all great books for every parent to read. And I will pass it to Chelsea, who will wrap us up and briefly introduce you all to our 5 C's of media use that we have at the Center of Excellence.
Yeah, so the 5 C's of media use are a mnemonic that was developed by the center that can be used to talk to your child about media use. So the 5 C's are a way to assess your child, assess their media use, and encourage their healthy use of media. So the 5 C's are child, content, calm, crowding out, and communication. So for child, every child uses and interacts with media differently. Different children might have different interests and preferences. So asking, who is your child? How do they use and react to media? What do they enjoy? What don't they enjoy? For content, content matters and can lead to positive or negative feelings and emotions such as happiness, learning, support, enthusiasm, fear, shame, and everything in between. So we want to think about what content is worth your child's attention. For calm, technology can be a tool for calming down, but it shouldn't be the only tool in the toolbox. And this is where the Calm toolbox can come into play too. So how does your child calm down strong emotions? How do they calm down to rest and go to sleep at night? For crowding out, we want to ensure that media does not crowd out important health behaviors like physical activity, social connections with family and friends, or sleep. So thinking about what does media get in the way of, what or how can we crowd back in those important behaviors if media is getting in the way of them? And last, communication. Communicating early and often, especially with openness and curiosity, is essential. So how can you talk about media with your child to raise them to be smart and responsible when it comes to their media use? And then on the next slide is guides. So there are guides on the Center of Excellence website for each age group and developmental stage. So the two on this slide are for kids aged 5 to 10 years old, and then young teens aged 10 to 14, tweens and teens. So these guides contain questions that can be asked to children about each C to evaluate their media use. And these guides are downloadable PDFs that can be used to guide those conversations. And then on the next slide, it describes our Q&A portal. So on the center website, we have an interactive Q&A portal, and this is a two-way communication channel that allows clinicians, educators, parents, families, youth, and others to submit questions about social media and mental well-being. Our team, our Center of Excellence team, we review all of the questions and then we develop prompt evidence-based responses that are based in the research literature that are emailed to users and put up on the website. These questions and responses are searchable by age, and they include, so on the website, we've included all of the previously asked questions and responses that have been made to date. There are over 100 responses up on our website, so feel free to check that out. You can scan the QR code. You can ask your own question and receive a response, or just explore the questions that have already been asked. And I think that wraps us up. So thank you all again so much for attending, and we're really looking forward to any questions that you have.
Okay. All right. I'm about to pause the recording. Before I do, I just want to mention that the books that were shared on the slide are mostly all available at the Farmington Community Library, and we are also ordering a couple of the ones that we didn't have. But if we don't have it, another library in Michigan has it, and we can get it for you. So all of those resources are available for you for free with your library card. And if you need help getting a library card, you can email me for that. So I'm going to stop the recording, and then we're going to open it up to Q&A. So you can go ahead and start putting your questions in the chat.